Welcome again to our second session of Coding Studio Saturdays. Uh, like a lot of you also attended the last session, so you must already be knowing that we are doing this to inculcate the CP culture in our college, so that more and more students do competitive programming as a hobby and also as a sport. Just as a recap, so in the last session, what we did was I introduced you all to the concept of competitive programming, and also I introduced to you the languages that we use generally in competitive programming and why we chose C++. And since we chose C++, I also introduced a few basics of C++. So I think most of you here are first years, first and second years. So I know that you don't have C++ in your syllabus, at least right now. But we'll go over some basics for first initial few sessions. So don't worry about not knowing C++. So so in the last session, we covered an introduction to C++. I showed you a simple hello world program in C++. I showed you the different parts of a basic C++ program, the headers part, and the main function, and so on. So uh, and also we discussed if I mean conditional statements and iteration statements. So these two things are called control structures, because using conditional statements and for iterative statements, you can change the way the your program flows. I mean, you can change how the logic works using control flow statements. So that's what we did in the last session. I hope you remember what we did, and if you don't, then it's fine. You can take a look at the recording that we have on our YouTube channel. So we uploaded the session, so you can go through that recording. So continuing with the basics of C++, today I'd like to introduce to you some more concepts. So firstly, I'll talk about functions. Like if you already know a little bit of programming, or if you learned C in college, you know what functions are, and what basically most of these things you already know what structs and scopes and all these things are. There are some new things which we'll see in detail today. um, so we'll talk about functions, and after that we'll talk about scopes and namespaces. We'll explore all these concepts by going live. I'll show you with live coding examples. And after that we'll see what structs are. Structs are very interesting, and classes and structs are very similar. I'll show you what the difference is, and why you would use one over the other. And finally, we'll talk about objects. Okay, so this is what we have for today. And so, yeah, so the first thing that I want to talk about is functions, right? So, what are functions? So, if you've written any program so far, uh, like every program has a few set of lines of code, right? So, if you think about writing a program to check whether a number is a prime number or not, okay, the logic is like this. uh, uh, Given a number, you need to check from 1 to that number and see how many numbers in between are divide that number evenly. That is, if I give you a number 15, then check all the numbers from 1 to 15 and see how many numbers divide 15. If you take 15, then you see that 1 divides 15, and 3 divides 15, and then 5 divides 15, and finally 15 divides 15. So if you count the number of divisors of 15, we have 4 divisors of 15, right? So since the number of divisors are 4, it means that the number is not a prime number. If you The definition of prime number is just this: a prime number is a number which is only divisible by 1 and itself. So that means the number of divisors is should be 2 for that number. So that is what a prime number is, right? So if you want to write the logic to check if a number is prime or not, you can write a for loop and count the number of divisors for that number from 1 to 15, and you can like use this for loop for any number that you want. But now imagine that you want to do this same procedure for many numbers, not just one number. You would need to use this logic again and again, right? So it makes sense to take this piece of logic and put it separately somewhere and make use of this logic again and again. Instead of writing the same logic, if you put this logic and give it separately and give it a name, like if I make a box, if I make a black box, and if this just assume that this magical box, if I give a number to this box, it will tell me if it's prime or not. And this black box has a name, and the name I can give it anything. I'll call it check prime. Okay, if I give that name to this box and I give it a number, it will tell me if it is prime or not. So that black box is what you would call a function. Okay, so there are two important things related to a function. So the first thing is you need to talk about what the function is taking in. That is, what are you giving to this box and what are you getting out? So it is the input and the output. So these two things are important. So you need to specify what this box is taking in and what you'll get out of this box. So given my prime number example, the box will take in a number, any integer, and it will tell me, and the output is true or false. Is it a prime or is it not a prime? So the input is an integer and the output is a boolean. So if you remember, I told you that booleans are just true or false values. They can only have two values, true or false. So that is what you would call a function. Let's explore it properly. Today I'll also be talking about namespaces. So today is the day when you'll get the explanation for that. But until then, just hold on. I'll forget that line for now, using namespace std. So this is the most basic C++ program structure, right? You'll include IOStream because you'll need to do inputs and outputs, and you need to take inputs and outputs. And int main is a must for every C++ program because that's where the program starts. And now let's write the logic for checking if a number is prime or not. So the first thing is we need to ask for input. Enter a prime number, I mean any number. Enter any integer. Let's ask for a positive integer. Okay. Now we need a place to store this number, so I need to declare an integer, right? So we'll call this num. Okay. Now we need to take this, so we'll use cin and put it in num. Now I told you like we need to count the number of divisors, right? So let's count the divisors and let it be initially be equal to 0. So the number of divisors initially will assume that it is 0. And now we need to start counting from 1. So I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to num I plus plus. So what I'm doing in this for loop is I'm starting at the number 1 and going until the given number and checking. And now inside this loop, I should check if that number is divisible. I mean, if that number divides num or not. If it does, then I'll increment the divisors count. So if num percentile I. You know what this symbol is called, right? So this is called the modulus operator. So it gives you the reminder of the division of two numbers. So if a number is divisible by another number, then that means the remainder should be 0, right? So that's what we're doing. If the remainder is 0, then increment the divisors count. Okay, this is all that there is to checking if a number is prime. Now, once you come out of this loop, once you counted all the number of divisors, Now it is time to check if the divisors are equal to 2 or not. So now we can check the divisors count. If the divisors are equal to 2, that means it is a prime, right? That means only 1 and the given number are dividing the number. So that means the count will only be 2. So now if the divisors are 2, see that it is prime. Else say that it is not, it is composite. Okay, so let's run this program and see. Okay, so it's asking me to enter any positive number. Let's enter 59. So 59 is a prime number. So it says it's a prime. If I run it again with a different number, let's say 45. We know it's a composite number, so that's what it prints. It's a composite number. So now coming to the functions part, as you can see, the logic of checking if a number is prime or not, it is different from my main program. Like it would be better if I can separate this logic into a separate mini program, and then whenever I want to check if a number is prime or not, I can call this logic, and it will tell me if the number is prime or not. So I'll show you how a function is created here. So let me create a function called check prime. Okay, now remember that I told you every function needs two things. We need to think about two things. One is what it takes, and the other is what it gives out. So the check prime function will tell us if if a number is prime or not, right? So it should give us a Boolean value, true or false. So the return value should be a Boolean. So this is the syntax of defining a function. So the first comes the return value of the function, and next comes the function name, and after the function name is a set of is a parenthesis. So inside this parenthesis, I'll give it the input. So this check prime function should take in a number, right? It should be an integer. So I'll say int x. So the input for this function is a number called x, and the output will be a Boolean. Now I can write my logic inside this function. Now I don't have to type it here completely. I can just like whatever I wrote here, I'll just put it there. Cut, paste. Okay. Okay. So there's one small thing that we have to change here. So the first thing is this. I cannot directly paste it here. I need to change some things. So firstly, this num variable, I changed the name to x, right? So I need to replace wherever num is to x. Okay. I think the rest of it is same. Yeah. One more thing is this bool. So this function is supposed to return me a true or false value and not print the statement. I don't want it to print it. I just want it to tell me if it's a prime number or not. So instead of these cout statements, I'll return true. Instead of saying it is a prime, I'll say return true. Instead of saying it's a composite number, I'll say return false. I'll show you some nice tricks here, like for how you can shorten your code. But for now, let it be. So now, this is our function now. Let me minimize my terminal. Okay, so this is our function now. Bool check prime. Now, here we can perform a function call in our main method. So here so far we've just written a function, and inside our main function we've taken an input. Now it is time to check, call this function, that is use this function. Whenever we want to use a function, we make a function call. That is, we call this function with and give it some inputs, and we'll take its output. So if check prime of num double equal to true, see out, it is prime. Okay, so what did I do here? Inside the if condition, I made a function call. That is, I call this function with the with num as its input, and whatever it returns, I'm comparing it with that value true. If check prime returns true, then this will be printed. It is a prime. Else, it will say it is not prime. Okay. Then let's go ahead and run this. Okay, enter any positive integer. Let's try 34. 34 is not prime, obviously. Let's try 29. 29 is prime, so that's what we get. So the program is working fine. But I want to show you some tricks. This will make the session much more interesting. We'll not just talk about competitive programming algorithms on this. I'll just show you some simple programming tricks also. So firstly, we can shorten this code, okay? Like what I wrote here, if else, first thing that you can observe is this if block is consuming 4 lines of code, which I don't think it really needs, right? So first thing is, since inside the if block, there is only one statement, you don't have to put the braces here. You can remove the braces. Okay. So I'll remove the braces. Even it is the same for any kind of control structure, like take, for loop, while loop, do while loop, anything. If else, if there is only one statement inside the block, then you don't have to specify the braces. Okay. So we remove that. And right now the whole if else is taking four lines. Now, one more thing that you can do is if check prime num is equal to true, right? We are doing this comparison, but you don't have to do this comparison because whatever check prime returns is already a boolean, right? So, like check prime will return me true or false. I don't have to compare it again with true. So like if I remove this comparison and just use check prime, this will still work because if the number is prime, check prime will return true and the if condition will be true. So it will go and print it is prime. If the check prime is returns false, it will go to else block and print it is not prime. Okay. So I don't have to make any comparison here saying double equals to true. Okay. So that is one small optimization you can make. Not really an optimization. It makes the code much shorter and easier to read, removing some unnecessary statements. And similarly, inside this function, we can remove some things. Since first of all, we'll remove the braces here. Okay, I removed those for the if block, and also inside this for loop, there's only one if condition. Okay, there's nothing else. So I can even remove the braces for the for loop as well. Remove. And if you look inside the if condition, there's only one statement again. So I can remove these braces as well. Okay. So now inside the for loop, there's only one if statement, and inside that if statement, there's only one increment statement. So this will all still work. Okay. So so now we shorten the code a little bit, and one more thing is, if you see what this value is, we are saying if divisors double equal to 2, then return true. Okay. Otherwise return false. Okay. The thing is, whenever I use a return statement, the control comes out of this function and goes back to wherever the function call was made. For example, let's say I sent the num as 2. Okay. In line number, I gave the input as number 2, and it went to the loop. It went to this function. Okay, x will be 2 and devices will be 0. I will start from 1 and go on until 2. And since from 1 to 2, 2 is divisible by both 1 and 2, the devices count will be 2, right? So after it exits this for loop, we'll compare it here. If 2 double equals to 2, return true. But I don't have to do this because this comparison here itself is a Boolean value. Okay. If I Let me tell you what I'm talking about. If I do this, return divisors double equal to 2. Don't you think this condition satisfies? Like, do I have to write if else here? So the reason this condition suffices because, think about this. If the divisors count is 2, what will this condition return? Like this comparison, it will return me true, right? If I put in place of divisors, if I put 2, this is true. So that means the number was prime. So it will return me true. Now, if the divisors count is 3 or 4, 4 double equals to 2 will become false, and that is what it will return. That is what the function will return, right? So it will return me false. So if the divisors are 4, that means it is not a prime number, and 4 double equal to 2 will also fail. So it will return me false, which tells me that it is not a prime number. So that is why this condition is enough to tell me if it's prime or not. Okay. So I wrote this code just to demonstrate why we use functions. Just to show you how a function looks like. Even int main is a function, right? But except that main has a special meaning to the operating system. So whenever your computer runs a program, especially a C++ or C program, it starts at the main function. Okay, it looks through the code and checks and it tries to find the main function, and if wherever it finds the main function, it will start executing the program from there. So and the reason main function returns an integer is that your operating system, it needs to know if a program exited properly or not. That means, see, when I run my program, let's run this program. It's asking me positive integer. I'll enter 3. It's saying it is a prime and it exited the program. So there were no errors. Okay, there was no problem at all while I was running the program. That means the program exit was successful. There were no errors. But instead, if there was some error, maybe my computer ran out of memory and there was no place to store any variables, or maybe something happened to my hardware, or some unseen error showed up. Okay, so in that case, what will happen is the program will exit with a non-zero exit code. What that means is, let's say my like I passed some wrong kind of data type to a function, or my memory ran out or something happened, and the program couldn't run successfully. So the program will stop and it will tell the operating system that I'm exiting, but I could not be successful. So the way it shows that it was not successful is by giving the operating system a number. This number may be anything. It depends on operating system to operating system, but generally, if a program is successful, it returns 0 to the operating system. So that's why after at the end of every main function in every program, we put this statement return 0. So it will tell the operating system that everything checked out fine, everything worked okay, and now I'm returning you 0, so there was no problem. If there was a problem, the operating system would know it by looking at the exit code and whatever cleanup things it would have to do. Like, for example, some memory got corrupted while running the program, then the operating system will perform the cleanup procedure. That is, it will kill this program and take away its memory and refresh it for other programs to use. Okay, so for these sorts of things, the exit code of a program is useful. So since the exit code is an integer, main function is is of type int. So that is the reason we have int main and return 0. If you didn't know that, now you know. Mm, so these are what functions are. Okay, they're just black boxes, some imaginary box into which you give a value and you get a value. Okay, now it can be of anything. I'll show you another example. Shravant is asking, what if main function is different? So Shravant, uh, there are, like, the compiler, it expects this function to look in a certain way. Okay, what if main function is different? Then return type will be in which data type? Acha. So Shravant, see, the main function, we are supposed to follow some rules with the main function. We cannot make main return any kind of value that we want. Okay, because if you do that, it won't compile, because the operating system expects this program in a certain way, and only if it is in that way, it will execute the program. So if you make your main function return a string, or if you make it return something else, the operating system won't understand what it means. Like if it returns, if the program returns a string, and the operating system is expecting a number, then the operating system won't know what to do, right? So you don't want that to happen. So what the compiler does is, it checks if the main function is proper. If it does not find an int main, a proper int main, then it'll throw an error. For example, let me do it here. Instead of int main, I'll put string main. Huh? Instead of return 0, I'll put something else. Let's say return hello. Let's try compiling it now. Oof. Okay, let's run it. So you see, I tried compiling it, but it threw me an error. It's saying error main must return int. So that means the compiler wants some int main function. It cannot take anything else because the operating system needs it that way. And finally, it's also saying this return statement, invalid conversion from const char star to int. Const char star is another name for strings. So it's thinking that this is a int, but it's not able to convert hello to int, to an integer. So it's throwing me this error, right? So this is what happens if you try to change main like that. So there are some set of rules that you have to follow, or your program won't even compile. This is just syntax. Okay, now we just have an empty function called fun. There's nothing in it. And inside this function, I'll create a variable called x, okay? I'll give x a value of 100, and I'll let it be here inside this function. And in my main, I'll print the value of x. Okay. So does anybody have any doubts with this? Okay, now tell me what the expected output is. What do you expect this program to do? Put it in the chat. Tell me, what do you expect this program to print? Okay, Shravant is saying it will print 100. Anybody else? Okay, Rahul is saying it will print 100. Okay, Vaishnavi also saying will print 100. Okay. Okay, Rishwit is saying it will throw me an error. Okay, let's see. Does anybody have any other opinions? Okay. Okay, let's see what it does. Also, I'll run the program. Okay. So it didn't print 100, it threw me an error. Congratulations, Rishwit and Yugender Reddy. So why did it throw me an error? Let's see. So one thing, guys, you really need to learn how to read errors, okay? I see a lot of people, even in my batch, who don't know how to read errors. If something goes wrong, the compiler exists to show you what went wrong, okay? You don't have to call someone and ask them what went wrong. The compiler will tell you by itself. Okay, so learn to read what went wrong. So here it's telling me X was not declared. First thing is this is the line number. First of all, we have the file name. Look at the output. So functions.cpp, line number 12, character number 13. That's how we read it. So line number 12. So this is line number 12, right? This is where the cout is. And the error is X was not declared in this scope. So what that means is this main function does not know what X is. Okay. So scope is the area in which a variable is available to use. Okay. So for here inside the void fun function, the scope of this variable is only within this function. So and it you cannot access this variable outside this function. So for example, it is like this. You can a lot of phone numbers, if you don't have international calling enabled, you cannot call them using your phone. For example, I cannot call my friend who stays in the US uh, because their cell service is not available here. I mean, my cell phone provider, they do not allow me to. They do not forward my calls to other countries. So this is similar. This concept is similar. Okay. So this X variable is not available anywhere else outside except inside this function. So that is what scope is, the area in which available. Since main is outside the scope of the declaration of X, you cannot use the value of X. So now I put the function call and it still gives me an error. Why do you think that is? It's because even though I called this function, see what happens when a function is called is this. Your program started at main, it went to line number 12, it called fun. Okay, now the control is here. Now it go inside this function, it will get a variable called X. Next line, X is assigned the value 100, and next line, the function is ending. Okay, so X is given the value of 100, and now after this the function ends. So now when the function ends, what happens is whatever variables and memory that was taken by this function is now destroyed. Okay, so whenever a function ends, all its data is erased. That is, it is deallocated. Technically it's called deallocated. It basically means that those variables are deleted. Okay, so this X variable gets destroyed. So even though I make a function call to this X variable gets destroyed and I cannot access it here. So how do I make this variable available to both functions? So there is a concept called global variables. Okay. So now global variables means a variable which is available through this program. Okay. You can access that variable anywhere. Now to declare global variables, you need to declare them outside both of these functions. So if I put int X here and give the value 100 like this, now X will be available in both fun as well as main. Okay, just for some time, let me comment these two lines inside fun. Okay, no, right now fun doesn't have anything, it just has two comments. And so here we are, this is a global variable. Now what this means is this X variable is available both in fun as well as main. So now if I run this program, oops, okay, now if I run this program, it'll go to main, and inside main this works, this statement works now because X is equal to 100. This is what it prints. Okay, so what this means is X is within the scope of main. I mean main can access all the variables that are outside it, but not I mean, because main is in the global scope, whatever is in the global scope is accessible inside main, but whatever is inside main will not be accessible outside main. Okay, so it's like whatever is in the bigger box
is accessible within the smaller box. Like if there's a small box within a big box, whatever is in the big box is accessible within the small box, but whatever is inside the small box cannot be accessed in the big box. Okay, so and this will even work if I put it inside fun. This is fun, x is equal to, we'll print x here and call fun. Okay, so if we execute this, so see, even in fun this works. This is fun, x is 100, and even in main it printed 100, right? So this means that x is now a global variable. So if you want to make a variable accessible within every function of that program, then you can make it global. Okay, now now we'll do something interesting. Let me uncomment these two lines. Okay, so now what you see is, okay, let me just put some more. This is main, x is equal to, okay, so now we'll have proper statements. So what do you think will happen now? Inside the fun function, I created another variable with the same name called int x, and I gave it another value. Okay, this time let me change the value. Let me call 70. Let me put 70 as its value. Okay, now what do you think will be printed? I made a function called to fun as well as I'm printing it at main. So what would be the output? Can you people guess? At one place it is 100, one place it is 70. Okay, Rishwit says 70, 100. Rahul says this is fun, 70, 70, 100, 70. Okay. Actually, there'll be two values printed, not just one. So we'll see which one is which. Okay, Rishwit is saying 70, 70. Okay, let's see. So this is what we get. This is fun, x is 70. This is main, x is 100. So there's a little bit of story going on here. So when you call fun, so you go to fun, and inside fun, we already have a variable called x, but it is global, right? But whenever you create a new variable with the same name as any other variable which is global, it replaces that variable. Okay, I don't mean to say this x is equal to 100, this global variable won't be deleted, but for this inside the fun function, whenever we say x, it only refers to the x which we declared inside this function. Okay, so when we print the value of x inside this function, we get the value of the local variable which is 70. So all the variables which are declared inside a function are called local variables. Variables which are outside a function are called global variables. Okay, because they are accessible globally. This is only accessible locally, so it's called local variable. So the x here inside fun refers to the local variable, but here in main, when fun exits, the local variables are destroyed, right? I told you they are destroyed. So now whatever remains is the global x. So see out, this is main, x will print the value 100. Okay, so the x here refers to the global x, here it is the local x. Now inside main I can put another x value. Let's call this 60. Now tell me what you'll get, what will the output be of this program when I run it? What will be the output of this program? There'll be 3 numbers printed. I'm sorry, there'll be 2 numbers printed, right? Right. Only 2, because there are only 2 print statements. Exactly. Ranisha, Shamita, Shravant, right? So because when I say x here, the x that this function knows is the local variable x now, because I created x here. if there was no local variable x, then it would search for it in the global scope and find that there is a x global variable called x is equal to 100. So that's what it will print. So whatever variable is closest in your scope will be used. Okay, so that is what scope is. Now, as you can see, we kind of have a problem. Like if you are writing a, if you are coding up a big project, and there are thousands of variables in it. Okay, uh, it is very likely that at some point, some two variables in your code will have the same name, but you won't realize it, and because of that, your logic will go. Like something will not work just because those two variables have the same name. Okay, like for example, let's say that I forgot that there is a variable called 100, and uh, uh, and here I'm getting the value of 60. Okay, that is fine. But imagine if I was expecting 100, but all I'm getting is 60 here. Why would like I would be confused, right? Like, why am I getting 60 when there should be 100? I would have forgotten that I created a local variable called x. So in order to avoid these conflicts, these things are called naming conflicts, because two variables collide in the names. So we to avoid naming conflicts, we create something called namespaces. Okay, so let me show you what namespaces are. Namespace. So now you'll understand what namespaces are. So a namespace is an area in which you can separate variables. Like let's create two namespaces. Okay, this is how you create namespaces. Basically, a namespace is just a block of code in which the variable scopes are limited to that namespace. Okay, so inside the namespace A, I'll create a variable x, and inside B also I'll create a variable x. And inside A, I'll give the value 10, and inside B, I'll give the value 20. Okay, let me remove all the code here. Let return 0b. So now if I print the value of x, it'll throw me an error, because again, x was not declared in the scope. So it is asking me to put, like it's confused, like what is x bulkhead. So now I need to tell it. So if I want to say that I want to use x from A and not from B, I can use this syntax: A colon colon A double colon x. What this means is I want to use x from the namespace A. Okay. So now if I print it, okay, let me clear my terminal. Okay, now print. So yeah, we get 10 here, because I'm specifically saying I want the x from the namespace A. Similarly, if I print B, X, and L, I'll get the output 10 and 20. 10 and 20. Now you might be wondering, like, instead of like using the same variable names, like it would be fine if I use different variables, right? Like I won't even have this problem in the first place. So why should I even use the same variable names? So the answer to that question is, like if you write a library, so let's say there's a graphic library. Okay, this graphics library, let's say you are making a game, and in this game, in any game you have some text, right? Like to show your score, to show you the if it's a racing game, you need to see your speed. So all these things are basically just text, but they are rendered differently. Like it's not the normal text that we see anywhere. It is like much more fancy and colors and all that, right? So maybe there's a library a with a variable called text. graphics library called with the variable text, and there's also a variable another library uh, which uh, which is a string library. Okay, which handles string functions and does manipulations with strings. Okay, it can read files and perform manipulations on these files, etc. So let's say this library also has another variable called text. The text in both these libraries mean different things. Okay, you can't just name them differently. So in such cases, when you want to use both the libraries, you don't want to confuse this text and that text. So in such places, what you would do is, in the graphics library, you'll create a namespace called graphics, and you'll put your text variable in that namespace. And similarly, in your strings library, you'll create a namespace called string, and you'll put your text variable in that string namespace. So now, instead of getting confused, I can say print graphics of x and string of x. Now there's no confusion. When I use this syntax, I'm clearly specifying which x I want. There's some error. X is not a member of graphics. Okay, the variable name is text. Sorry, not x, text. Yeah, now it works, right? So this is what namespace is. Now coming to this using namespace line. So let's say that I don't want to use this syntax. Okay, so wherever I want to use the text, wherever I want to use the variable text, I want to use the graphics text, not the strings text. Okay, if I want to say that, what I can do here is use this keyword called using. If I say using namespace a, namespace graphics, oops, graphics, using namespace graphics, what this means is whatever variables are within this namespace will come into the current scope. So instead of saying graphics of text, if I say text, just text, it will print 10, because I said that currently I'm using the namespace called graphics, and whenever, because I'm using this namespace, when I say text, it will directly go to graphics and get its value. What function start, define reference to main. Okay, sorry, I don't need namespace here. Using graphics is enough. Text was not declared. Okay, let me put this here. Okay, just give me a minute. Graphics text was not declared in the scope. Using namespace graphics. Yeah. Okay, so I had to put that line inside main. So see, inside this main function, I said using namespace graphics. So whenever I use this variable text, it refers to the variable which is there in the graphics namespace. So coming to this using namespace std line, so all the important objects and the most commonly used variables in C++ are defined under the namespace called std. Std stands for standard, so it's also referred to as the standard namespace. So if you didn't use this line using namespace std, Let me remove all this. Now there is no using namespace std. Okay, I'll also remove this line. So cout and cin and endl, all these variables, endl is a manipulator, cout is an object. All these variables are defined under the std namespace, right? So if you remember how I accessed text from graphics and string namespaces separately, I used double columns, right? So I can do the same thing here. So instead of using keyword, I can say std cout, just hello world, and std endl. So std cout and std endl are variables in the std namespace. So as you can see, if I want to use cout or endl or cin, I need to say std cout, std endl, std cin again and again a lot of times. So instead of using like writing this again and again, if we just say using namespace std, whenever the program will understand that whenever I say cout, I'm referring to the cout which is in std namespace. Whenever I say endl, it means use the endl which is there in the std namespace. That is the standard namespace. Okay, so that's what this line does using namespace std. Did you understand why we use this line? Uh, if you have any doubt, put it in the chat. I guess we can close here today. We'll talk about structs and classes in the next session. I guess we can. We'll see you all in the next session next Saturday. So thank you all for coming. If you have any doubts, like after the session or anything, you can reach out to us on our Discord server, or you can send a mail to us at executives at codingstudio.club. So yeah, that's it, guys. See you in the next session. Thanks for coming. Bye.